Welcome back. As the country prepares for the local government elections, the African National Congress seems to have struggled in by-elections contested since last year's general elections. This comes as opposition parties showed sustained growth, with former President Jacob Zuma's MK party winning 10 of 88 by-elections it has contested. Political analyst Sanet Solomon joins us now for more. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Ms. Solomon. Let's understand this. Last year, pardon me there, one of the things that we have seen over the last year has been how the ANC has been performing in many of these by-elections. It has struggled. Shall the ANC be worried considering that we're going to the local government elections?
I think that its recent performance has been a cause of concern because other political parties have been doing much better than the ANC has. As you rightfully mentioned, the MK party seems to be growing. The Patriotic Alliance is making inroads in terms of different communities. We see Action SA also doing very well in terms of Gauteng. And then obviously there've been a few by-elections in which the DA did well. So I think that this basically gives us more or less of an idea of how people might vote in the coming elections. And I think that if we can go based on the tentative stats that we're seeing in terms of the by-elections, I think that it might be a cause of concern.
Yeah, one of the major political events is next week, where the ANC will hold its January 8th statement in the Northwest. What do you think the focus of this statement will be this year?
I think that a lot of it will be obviously based on better issues. So it will be things such as water, service delivery, unemployment, etc. So I think that those are generally the things that are very close to those communities, and especially given that it is a local government election. Yeah. So I think that those would be some of the issues that they will touch on. We might hear them touch slightly on international issues, but I think that the January 8th statement will predominantly be focused on preparing for the 2026 local government elections. And I think that that's basically the gist of what we can expect. Nothing new, just a lot of political rhetoric and I would say a lot of recycled sentiments.
Are we likely to also hear them talking about renewal of the party? As you've rightfully said, this is something that we've heard all the time.
I think that they will be emphasizing on their renewal agenda. I think that that is something that has taken precedence in a lot of their statements over the past few months. I think that they will be talking about how they are hoping to revitalize local government or the ANC, how they would hope to strengthen their different wards, etc. And I think that that obviously would be something that they would mention, but whether or not the people listening to those statements would be understanding and or believing the sentiments is something completely interesting. But what is also quite fascinating is that each year as they move on and prepare for these different January 8th statements, the location that they're choosing tends to become smaller and smaller, and so is the communities in which they're speaking. So I think it could point to the awareness that they have a less of a support base, or it could be that they're going to places where they've had or enjoyed quite a number of support over the past few years. And I think that Northwest has been that base for them.
Yeah, in fact, that's the point that I was going to go to, that they're going into the Northwest, and we know that the Northwest is their stronghold. Are they trying to make sure that they sustain that, really?
I think so. I don't think that the ANC has been doing very well in a lot of areas. So I think that trying to hold on to Northwest would be quite important for them. I think that they'll also try to hold on to the Northern Cape and I think the Free State. I think that those are generally the provinces in which they do the best. Yeah. I do think that they are aware of some of the challenges that they would be experiencing in larger provinces such as your Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, the Western Cape. And I think that that's why they moved away from that. We know that they didn't do very well in terms of the January statement last year when they were in the Western Cape. So I think that that could possibly be why they decided to move to a smaller location where they do have a large support base to actually showcase that they do still have and enjoy like quite a bit of support in the South African context.
But the reality, though, in the provinces where the ANC enjoys a lot of support, be it the Northwest or the Eastern Cape, the service delivery is appalling.
It is. It truly is. We see that there are still a number of schools that are using pit toilets. We see that the school infrastructure is not well, and I think that we'll be seeing that a lot as we prepare to see obviously the matric results come out. So I think that there would be a lot of discussions on the state of the schools in these different provinces, and I think that the Eastern Cape is rightfully one of those. We know that the hospitals in these provinces are also not doing as well as they possibly could. There's a lot of infrastructure collapse and also dilapidated infrastructure that is close to being in collapse. We see that the state of the roads are not well. There's high levels of unemployment in terms of these provinces, but there's also migration in terms of people leaving those provinces to go to wealthier provinces like Gauteng and the Western Cape in hopes of changing their home situation. So I think that, as you rightfully mentioned, these provinces are impoverished. And what is also quite interesting is if you look at the spaces where the different ANC leaders come from, you'd also note how dilapidated those are. For example, Fikile Mbalula, I believe, is from the Free State.
Yeah.
And the province or the small town that he comes from is close to collapse. And similarly, you could point out what happens with each of these different leaders. So I do think that while they did enjoy support in these different contexts, I do think that over time this will change as different political parties come in and actually end up replacing the ANC, or people actually start looking for alternatives. And we have seen it happen over the years, where you would find communities that would traditionally vote for the ANC moving on and moving for another political party. Last year, there was a by-election where we saw, for example, people voting for MK instead of the ANC in the Western Cape in Saldanha, I believe that was the by-election. And I mean, that's not necessarily an area in which you think that the ANC would do, or the MK party would do well. And we've seen a lot of that happen, the Patriotic Alliance winning over an ANC ward. And I think that we're going to see that a lot. And I think it's going to start happening in those provinces where we would traditionally only see ANC support.
The SACP has decided to contest the upcoming local government elections. I'm wondering, though, how much of an impact will this have on the ANC?
I think that the SACP would not be a strong contender on its own, but I do think that they have the ability to weaken the ANC. We've known that over the past few years, the ANC has lost quite a bit of support, as we had the fragmentation where there was the start of the co-party, then you had the fragmentation, the formation of the EFF, then you had a fragmentation, the formation of the MK party, and now you have the SACP contesting the election by themselves. I think that the ANC is already in such a weakened position, and that it did traditionally rely on the tripartite alliance in order for it to do well. But we've also noted that members of the tripartite alliance have mentioned that they were not happy, that the demands were not being met, etc. And I think that it was just a matter of time that this was going to happen. It's been something that the SACP has been discussing and mentioning over the past 2 to 3 years, stating that this is something that they might be going for. And I think that it was just a matter of time before it happens. And I think that it will be hitting them the hardest, especially, the people who used to work in mining, etc., who used to support the ANC by virtue of them being part of the tripartite alliance. And we've seen that over the years, a lot of the mining companies have also been letting some of their staff go, etc. And I think that those people will then be voting in favor of this. And this also raises an interesting question about whether the SACP would, after the elections, then go into a coalition with other political parties. And I think that that would hurt the ANC significantly.
I just want us to change focus a little bit and talk about the GNU. Last year, we saw some internal squabbles, right? I'm wondering how much of internal squabbles are we going to see this year? Last year it was the Bella bill, and also there was the issue of land expropriation without compensation. And will the GNU survive?
I think that it's something that we've been quite concerned about since 2024. And I rightfully think, as you've mentioned, there have been tensions with regards to the Bella bill, etc. And I think in this year, we will see those tensions intensify as there are more talks about the NHI and the implementation thereof. And we know that that's obviously going to cause a strain on taxpayers, etc. And I think that that has the possibility of causing more fragmentation. But just on the existing issues that they are dealing with, do you think that the ANC has been struggling to actually meet its coalition partners halfway? We've seen how they struggled in terms of passing the budget last year and it deciding to just do this unilaterally. And I think if the ANC continues on this trajectory, there might just be an instance where the DA, the Patriotic Alliance, and other GNU partners could meet up with other political parties and actually decide on an alternative trajectory and then actually exclude the ANC, because that's also a possibility. But also if the ANC and the GNU partners don't work out, there's also a possibility where we might see other political parties coming in. And we know that some of these options have been possibly the EFF coming in, possibly MK coming in. And I think that as we move towards the end of President Cyril Ramaphosa's tenure, there's a possibility that these parties might be actually open to joining the GNU, as he has also been one of the reasons why they have stayed out of the GNU until now.
Another political party that, has fascinated me is the MK party and the movements within within the party itself. And I'm wondering whether the MK party base should be concerned about what's happening within that party, especially because we're going into the local government elections.
I think that at the upper structures of the MK party, there has been quite a bit of turbulence. We've seen a lot of leadership changes, especially in parliament, and there's been a lot of inconsistencies in terms of the direction that the political party is going in. But we also know that the political party itself seems to be built around a personality, that being our former president, Jacob Zuma. So there have been questions about whether or not this political party would be doing well. But one of the interesting things about the party is that it's been quite clear in terms of the fact that it will not be electing leaders at these ward levels, etc., and that they would rather be appointing people. And I think that with the appointment of these people in place, they've had quite a bit of stability. And despite the challenges that have been experienced at national level, they still seem to be doing very well in terms of the by-elections. We know that there's been a lot of ANC leaders who have also joined the MK party, and I think that that could also contribute towards them winning by-elections, because at local government level, a lot of people vote for councillors that they're familiar with, the work that they're familiar with those councillors, instead of just voting for a party based on party loyalty. And I think as the ANC continues to struggle, I think that the MK party will obviously try to absorb some of those leaders. And I think that despite its challenges at at national level, I still think that they have a possibility of doing very well at the local government elections.
I'm wondering, on the Floyd Shivambu party, Maibuye, are we likely to see more of them this year?
I don't necessarily think that. I think that the party is very young and it has already lost its deputy president, which is not a good way to start off as a new political party. We haven't seen a lot of information about them. We haven't seen them participate in a lot of activities, etc. It could be that they are trying to prepare for the local government election, but I think that they will ultimately become one of those micro-political parties. I don't necessarily think that it will be the kind of party that will be rivaling with the likes of the DA, the ANC, the MK, the Patriotic Alliance, and Action SA.
All right, thank you so much for your time tonight. That was political analyst Sanet Solomon.